Welcome to America's Wealth Management Show. I'm Logan DeGraeve alongside Cris Marik today. Cris, how are we doing?
I'm doing awesome, Logan. Glad to be talking with you today.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Well, for those who may not know Cris is one of our advisors out of our Orland Park, Chicago office. Cris, why don't you take a few minutes here to kind of tell everyone what you do, who you specialize with, who you work with, and a little bit about your background.
Yeah, thanks, Logan. As you said, I am an executive advisor in our Orland Park, Illinois office. And for those that aren't super familiar with the Chicagoland area, we're just outside the city in the southwest suburbs. And we joined Modern just about a year ago, and it's been an exciting first year, and it's really teeing us up for an exciting future for our team.
Yeah, and Cris, you're a little unique, right? Because not only are you a CFP, but you're also a CFA. Talk a little bit about kind of your education and background and experience working with clients.
Sure. Yeah, I came to this not initially. I didn't know what path I was going to take until a life event happened in my 20s, where I took my financial degree, my finance degree, and converted that into a focus on personal wealth management and financial planning. I'm glad you asked about that, because the why that I chose this as a career really ties into what we're going to talk about today. Because my mom lost her spouse, my dad, very suddenly when they were only in their 50s. And that really set me on a path towards, how can I help people that go through that type of event, or people that just live independently as single people to, how do they plan for their financial future? So I started with the financial planning, and, I really realized how much investments tie into a key component of that planning process. So then I built upon that broader look of a certified financial planner designation with the chartered financial analyst credential, which really digs in deep on how do you build a portfolio, how do you manage those risks, and how do you tie that into the big picture.
Cris, that was perfect. And you kind of tied into what we're going to talk about today. So our show today is specifically on retirement planning for single individuals. Okay, a lot of financial advice, a lot of commercials, everything that you see around financial planning, it's around couples, spouses. And, for us today, it's really, what is it if it's just you, and how are things different? What are the unique risks? What are the unique opportunities? And what are the strategies that we have to, come into play with? Because ultimately it could be because you're single, because you want to be single, right? It could be you're widowed, right? It could be you're divorced, and you're facing a different set of financial rules. You're going to be in a higher tax bracket potentially. You're now the built-in caregiver. You have to make decisions entirely on your own. Cris, talk a little to me about what are the challenges, whether you fit into any of these categories, but let's just say you're single, you're doing retirement planning, you're doing financial planning. Why is this difficult? And also, why do we feel like sometimes this isn't talked about enough? Because I think that we don't hear about it enough.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's probably a little bit of this component of people being a little underserved or under-focused on. And, a lot of people, I don't know the statistics on this, but there's probably more married people than there are people who have chosen to just remain single. I think I look at planning for a single person as really revolving around that independence factor, which they've built their life on, and you don't have that support system that comes with having a spouse. You may or may not have kids, but how do you maintain that independence and build that support system around yourself? Because I think that you have to sometimes feel like you have to be a little bit more conservative because you don't have that backup person built in. And how do you plan for that to protect yourself? Retirement income planning. How do I make sure I'm not going to run out of money? How do I plan for if I get sick as I get older? How do I meet that challenge as a single person?
Yeah, you just said something too about, we tend to see a lot more maybe potentially being conservative, and you just named a number of reasons why a single person may do that with their financial planning. And then I think that everyone really enjoys our Don't Do That segment. Well, we'll talk about the one legal document single people often forget and why missing it could be a big problem. So, but first, let's talk about the headwinds and why it's mathematically harder to retire as a single person. And it really starts around the tax challenge potentially. Remember, we're talking if you're, just always been single, maybe you're divorced, maybe you're widow, whatever it may be here. These all kind of fit the same thing for a single person. But Cris, why is there a tax challenge for someone who's single versus married filing joint?
Well, let's take, for example, a working professional, and they're making, $100,000, $200,000, depending on where they're at in their career trajectory. If I'm making $100,000 as a single person, I'm already into the 22% tax bracket, right, Logan?
Yep.
But if I am a spouse, the working spouse in a relationship, and my spouse stays at home to take care of the family, and it's the same income level, I'm not in the 22% tax bracket. I'm actually in the 12% tax bracket. So there's a big discrepancy in that type of planning, around that.
Yeah, and Cris, I think one thing too is when you think about tax planning for single person married versus married filing joint, there's often many years. Let's say that someone potentially they were married. Let's talk about a spouse passes first. We do all this financial planning. We make all these decisions around when we take Social Security, when we retire, how we're going to invest. What are our hopes, goals, dreams, desires? What are the things we want to do? But the key factor that we don't know is how long we're going to live for. So one of the challenges that happens a lot of times with planning for taxation and retirement is both spouses often don't pass at the same time. And so we have this window. Sometimes it's a short window. Sometimes it could be, 10, 15, 20-year window where that remaining spouse is a single tax filer. And a lot of times with tax planning where people get too short-sighted is, hey, look, I have all this money saved to IRAs or 401ks, tax-deferred vehicles. Uncle Sam's never gotten his piece of that pie yet. You have these required minimum distributions, and people think, well, it'll be fine. It's kind of just what we're living off of, or, hey, it's something we're not worried about. But the problem with that is, let's say that our income, and you just alluded to it, at retirement's $150,000 a year. We have our RMDs, Social Security. One spouse passes, right? Now we're a single tax filer, so all those brackets get condensed, and oftentimes we may just lose one Social Security, benefit. We're not seeing many folks that have pensions like we used. It's kind of dying as time goes on here. So, what should folks that whether they're single or whether they're widow, divorced, what should they think about as they step into retirement when it comes to income planning to try to get ahead of this? Because I often think that the way I look at it is taxes are inevitable. We know we have to pay them. We know the rules today within 401ks and IRAs. So what are things and planning techniques folks should be looking at as they start stepping into retirement?
Yeah, I think of a lot of it as like, how do you optimize what you've built up to strategize around that window of time that you referenced? And that window could be from the point you retire. And let's say that's in advance of starting your required distributions. So let's say if you're born, as an example, after 1960, you have until age 75 to start your required distributions. So you could have a good planning window from a tax perspective to really reassess where is your money positioned from a tax perspective, and are there opportunities to fill up some of those lower tax brackets, let's say by converting money from traditional IRA or traditional 401k to a Roth account to help smooth out your tax brackets in the future and perhaps lower required distributions and then a future tax burden, which could be at a higher rate depending on what you have.
Sure.
The other strategy that comes to mind, and we've talked about ordinary income tax rates, but let's not forget there's a different tax regime for capital gain taxes as well. And that difference we've been talking about of whether you're in the 22% tax bracket for ordinary income versus 12, the difference on a capital gains bracket, is from a 0% tax if you're in the lowest ordinary income bracket up to 15%. So are there opportunities to rebalance assets that you've appreciated over time outside of your IRA accounts and get taxed, to have gains taxed at 0%?
Yeah, no,
So I think there's a lot of levers to pull in that window.
It's a great point. I think, as we sit and think about tax planning and, it all revolves around the financial plan though, because ultimately you can't have a tax planning discussion. You can't have hey, why should I take Social Security later versus early? Most of the time you got to remember it's not just about you, it's about your spouse, because for all these reasons we're talking about. And you just alluded to it too, at the onslaught of the show. A lot of times you see with single folks that they often maybe don't feel as confident because they are the sole decision maker. It's not, they don't have someone to bounce this off of. So that's why having a financial plan that you're confident in, you have conviction in, where you can live and do the things that you want to do is critical. Another thing, and I'll let you talk about, that single folks are planning struggle a lot with is that long-term care or potentially care gap, right? So we're not just talking about, hey, look, you're going to go to long-term care or whatever it may be, but what we're talking about is, hey, look, you're no longer independent or you need some assistance with whatever it may be. Have you stress tested the financial plan for what you can do? And what conversations have you had with your family or your children, if you have them, about what would you like to have happen? But Cris, I'll kick it over to you. With your experience, where have you seen this with single folks where it becomes a challenge, and how do you plan for it and how do you get ahead of it? Because inevitably, we all won't live forever. And oftentimes, we're all not in perfect health forever. And it's important that we have these conversations.
Yeah, that openness of having that, what is actually a very difficult and stressful thing to talk about, to really have someone like your financial advisor, financial planner, to kind of bounce these ideas off of in an objective fashion. Because you have to be weighing things like, where am I going to live? Can I continue to age in place, as they say, in my home? Do I have external people like adult children, a network of friends or extended family that I truly could rely upon to help with caregiving needs? And that may or may not be something that you can put your stock in. So then you have to really be proactive in thinking about, well, what can I do to exert control over this? Which you don't know it will happen. That's the rub, but you want to be prepared. So do I want to be proactive and start researching when I'm healthy? Where might I go live in the community, independent living with options for future care? And then to coming back to the financial plan, what is that going to cost? How do I plan for that cost? And what strategies can I look at? I may have accumulated enough wealth to pay those costs myself out of my investments, or I might need to evaluate is there outside insurance that I might want to consider to help supplement that or provide a little bit more of a backstop on the outset. So that's some of the conversations that we have with clients in kind of gaming out how could that look.
Yeah, and you said it when you started of how difficult those conversations are. And you can't also just rely on, hey, look, everything, you said this, everything's going to be great. My kids or my nieces or nephews or my sister or brother, they're going to get all this taken care of. They know I want to stay in the home. They know I want to do these things. And I'm sure you've seen this. And for whatever circumstance or various reasons it may be, oftentimes how maybe that person thought this would go or how they wanted it to go just doesn't align with what needs to happen within the family dynamic or the caregiver dynamic. And that's where you're talking about, where you're actually going out and you're choosing, hey, I want to go to this potential place to live, or I want to stay in my home and I'm going to have someone come in and help me do these things. Or, hey, look, I'm going to remodel the house to make sure I can go to my home, which leads to a great financial planning question. You're building out that financial plan, and are you in a home that you could stay in forever? And Cris, I'll kind of kick it to you. What should someone be thinking as they're going through these conversations about what are things to plan on that plan for that a lot of people don't think about? So we know there's potentially a long-term care stay. There's potentially in-home care, right? That we can potentially mitigate that risk with insurance. And none of us like insurance. None of us like paying for insurance, but we're sure glad we have it if we need it. But from your vantage point, is there anything else a single person should really be thinking about here as they're building their financial plan?
I think the regular income sources that you're going to draw down from on a regular basis. How do you tie that in to even beyond care, like your end of life plan? Like, where does your money go?
Right.
What documents do you have in place to spell out those wishes? And if you are in a situation where, some people, they don't have, without kids, if you're as a single person, it can be a dilemma. Like, I've seen clients where they're so stuck because they don't want to deal with the where does my money go at death, because they don't really have somebody that they have the money to go to.
Sure.
And that's a stumbling block at times. So maybe you're talking about, how do you think about legacy planning as well for a single person?
I think before we move on, we're talking about a lot of things about care, and when you realize that you kind of need that second income to be the caregiver or have a caregiver, right? And what have you done planning for it? And if the math makes sense, that's important. But I also want to talk about positive things that for a single person around financial planning, because you said it, that you often see sometimes a lack of decision making, or struggling to make decisions, or struggling constantly if I am doing the right thing, because they don't have someone to bounce it off of. But don't let that indecision or that lack of confidence prevent you from doing the things that you want to do. The most precious commodity we all have is time. Our last segment here is, I think, one that people enjoy, and we call that the "Don't Do That" segment. And I'll say this. If a married person goes into a coma, their spouse usually has some default legal authority to make medical decisions on their behalf. If a single person goes into a coma without documentation, nobody has authority. Cris, why is this a mistake? Why is this something that is so critical, so often overlooked? And why is it just assumed? People would just maybe say, let's imagine a single person. Well, my brother, we're so close. He's going to be able to talk on my behalf. But Cris, that's not actually how things work when this happens. So talk a little bit about why this is the mistake, how you can get ahead of it, and why this is so critical for people.
Yeah, I think maybe it comes down to, in many ways, some aspects of the law in these types of situations it's just naturally around a married couple and the rights that a spouse has in helping the other spouse legally. So if you don't have that spouse, there's nobody under the law that is by default going to step in and help manage your healthcare decisions, or to help go to the bank and help pay your bills while you are incapacitated, in the hospital for whatever length of time. So there are planning documents, legal documents that every person really needs to have in place, where you are in control of who you name. Because, just because you have a sibling, that doesn't mean you want that sibling to be the one to step in. You might
actually
not
that siblings comfortable with, whatever it may be. And so, Cris, I think the mistake is, failing to have the financial power of attorney, medical directives, just the key documents. I often talk to clients or, people about just make sure you have a powers package. Same thing, we're talking about single people in retirement. Same thing with, if you have kids that go off to college and are legal adults now, and just it's critical to make sure that you have all this in place, because the problem is everyone assumes, hey, this won't happen to me, or hey, look, my brother that we're best friends, he's going to take care of all this stuff for me. But the reality is, don't leave it up to the courts or a judge or whoever it may be. Make sure that you have all these documents in place. Cris, we talked about a lot at a very, very high level. As we wrap today, I'll kind of give you 30 seconds here. If you could give one piece of advice to someone that's out there and they're single for whatever reason or whatever circumstance, what's the most important thing and where do you start? Because this is overwhelming.
But I think I would want people to know it's a real safe space. Sometimes that could be just a real burden of like, I have this mess because I've been what I feel like is a mess because I've just been busy with work and my career. I haven't been able to pay attention to this. I would say don't be afraid to take that first step. It is, I think, in the end, what you would find to be just like a freeing process of going through the planning process, and can really just set you up for, living life how you want to live, and with hopefully a little less worry about these things down the road.
Cris, thank you so much for joining us today on America's Wealth Management Show. I really enjoyed the conversation and look forward to having you back on next time.
Thanks so much, Logan. I really appreciate the conversation and look forward to the next one as well.
Great. We'll see you guys next time. Thank you.
The views expressed represent the opinion of Modern Wealth Management, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Information provided is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute investment, tax, or legal advice. Modern Wealth Management does not accept any liability for the use of the information discussed. Consult with a qualified financial, legal, or tax professional prior to taking any action.